Welcome to my channel, and today we will continue our discussion on the chapter of head injury. As you know that we have discussed the injuries of scalp and different types of fractures of skull bones in our previous discussion. We have seen that there are multiple types of skull fractures, and more often than not they are associated with underlying injury to the brain or meninges or both. So today we will discuss about the traumatic brain injuries. Traumatic brain injuries means in any external injury or blunt force trauma that results into a injury to the brain tissue itself. So today's class we'll discuss about concussion, different about brain contusion, lacerations, etc. So without further ado, we will start. So what we would hope to learn from today's class. At the end of the class, you guys should be able to enumerate different types of traumatic brain injuries. I would expect that you would be able to understand the physics behind the causation of the traumatic brain injuries, how the different types of forces that come into the play that ultimately results in a traumatic brain injury. And we will hope that at the end of the class you guys would be able to enumerate the salient features and medical importance of cerebral concussion. First, the rather difficult part to understand what is the mechanism behind the cerebral injuries. So behind any type of mechanical force, whenever a mechanical force interacts with a human body, it causes injuries. And if you want to understand how the force caused that injury, you need to have a decent understanding of the physics behind the acting of the force. So uh, in a head trauma, the damage may have been caused due to actual injury directly acting on the head itself or without an actual blow or fall on the head. For example, in the chapter of infanticide or child abuse, we have seen there's a part called shaken baby syndrome when the infant is violently shaken, and that shaking of the infant alone it can cause subdural hemorrhage. Subdural hemorrhage means hemorrhage underneath dura mater. It's a type of intracranial hemorrhage that we will discuss in tomorrow in the next class. But at least you can know that in a shaken baby syndrome, no force or no direct trauma is at there on the head itself, but the forces are transmitted that will lead to subdural hemorrhage. I, I would urge you to recollect previous discussion once again. There was a type of skull fracture called ring fracture. Ring fracture is a circular fracture of the base of the skull surrounding the foramen magnum. It can be seen when a person falls from height and lands on the feet or buttock. So there's no direct trauma to the head, yet the force is transmitted by the vertebral column and that will lead to real fracture. So these are the two instances where skull fracture as well as a traumatic brain injury or cerebral injury is seen without force directly acting on the head. So what does a force causes? A blow on the head, that is, blow means blow by fist, blow by a rod, blow by a pipe, anything, any hard object or a blunt force that leads to a linear or rotational change in the velocity. That is, if the head is in static position and if a force is applied on the left side of the head or on the left temporal bone, so the head as a whole and the brain also will get a velocity from it comes directly from the Newton's second law of motion. Head will head is acted upon by an external force, so its change of rest will change. Now it's in motion, so the blow caused a change in the velocity. So the forces are either, the forces can be two types: linear. The forces can result in a linear or rotational change. So the linear change will be either acceleration, that is the velocity will increase, or deceleration, the velocity will decrease, or the rotational velocity, that will lead to centripetal and centrifugal forces. So these are the different force and the effect. So what are the linear acceleration forces? That means forces that causes linear acceleration. So these are compressional or rarefaction forces. That is compressional force. The same example that we discussed in our last class, that a person suffered a road traffic accident, is lying on the road, and the head is compressed by wheel of the car. So that's a compressional force that causes both shearing as well as a linear acceleration. So this is compressional force. So this acceleration and deceleration force, or acceleration means increase of the velocity, deceleration means decrease in the velocity. So the head was static, but due to impact of the blow, it started to move. So velocity increased. It's an acceleration force. Whereas the person was riding in a car suddenly stopped, and the head moved and the body bends forward, and head is bashed against the dashboard. So here the head was in motion and it is stopped by the dashboard. So it's a deceleration force. So if that is coupled with a rotational element, that will cause significant brain damage. Why the rotational force is so important? Because if the head is in rotation, that rotation and velocity or rotational inertia will be transmitted to the brain itself. So brain will started to rotate, but brain is enclosed within the dura mater, and dura mater is fixed with the falx cerebri and tentorium cerebelli. So this will produce a gliding or shearing strain. And also all parts of the brain will not move at the will not move with the same velocity. So some part will move more than the other. So in between those two parts also there will be a gliding or shearing strain that will cause that will cause traumatic brain injury due to the shearing strain. And as we discussed in the last class also, if due to a localized force, there's a local deformation of the skull, that will lead to local compression and typical cone-shaped contusion underneath the depressed fracture, as we have seen in our last class. So this is how the rotation of the brain. This is the most important part of this slide. That why the rotational element is important, because that will produce a gliding or shearing strain between the brain matter, and that will eventually lead to the traumatic brain injury. Sudden arrest of a moving skull of the previous example, as we know that a person was riding in the car, he was riding shotgun, that is he is sitting beside the driver without wearing seat belts. The suddenly car stops and the person moves forward, as the body was in the inertia of motion alone with the car. The car has stopped, but body will continue to move forward due to inertia, and head will bash against the dashboard. So sudden arrest the moving skull, that will cause a deceleration of skull first. The skull will stop as skull is in direct contact with the dashboard, but brain will continue for a few fraction of second. So the momentum of brain causes continuous motion. So because skull and brain, they cannot change their velocity simultaneously. Skull will stop first, brain will continue to move and it will move later. So brain is restrained by the flats and tentorium, as I said. So damage to the this will lead to damage to the base of the cerebrum or corpus callosum or the brainstem itself. And due to shearing strain, also when brain will impair, brain will strike against the inner surface of the skull. So that will lead to a diffuse contusion of the cortex itself, outer surface of the cortex. So, due to sudden arrest of the moving skull, there can be injuries in the brain in two ways. As brain will continue to move for a longer period than skull, which stops first, the brain is restrained by the flats and tentorium, so there will be a damage to the base of the corpus callosum or base of the cerebrum, corpus callosum or brainstem. And also when the brain will strike against the inner surface of the skull, there will be a diffuse contusion of that part also. Okay, so this is how brain injuries occur in this scenario. So cerebellum, due to small size and light weight, is less liable to suffer damage due to rotatory movement of the head. Look at this photograph. This photograph is of the same example. Here, the due to rotational force, there will be shearing and twisting of the brain that is shown by this arrow. And here we will come across two new terms, coup and counter coup. Coup means direct blow and counter coup means counter blow. Now coup injury is suffered by the brain at the site of the action of the force. So here this is the part which is bashed against the dashboard. So skull is stopped, head is moving forward, the brain is moving forward, brain strikes against the inner surface of the skull here. So in the frontal lobe there will be coup injury due to direct blow. Now there comes Newton's third law of motion. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So due to the reactionary force, the brain will be bouncing backward. This is head brain going bounce backward, and then it will strike against the inner surface of occipital bone. There will be counter coup injury. So due to the rotational element, the shearing and twisting, there will be injuries in this part, in the corpus callosum, brainstem. Also there will be coup injury on the frontal lobe and counter coup injury on the occipital lobe. Fine. What is a counter coup lesion? Coup is located directly beneath the area of impact. Counter coup is in the opposite. This is due to local distortion of skull and sudden rotation of head resulting from a blow which causes shear strain, or acceleration or deceleration injury, or formation of cavity or vacuum on the opposite side. That is when brain and along with it CSF moves forward and strikes against the frontal bone on the occipital side, it causes a sudden vacuum as all the CSF has moved forward. So that will contribute also to the brain's movement backwards towards the occipital bone. That will cause formation of the counter coup lesion. Okay. Blow on occipital, coup injury will be on the occipital and counter coup will be on the frontal and tip of the temporal lobe. Blow on the front of the head, counter coup lesion will be on the brain, on the back of the brain or on the brainstem also due to the rotational element. Fall on side, counter coup lesion will be the contusion of the opposite side. Fall on the top of the head, the contusion of the ventral surface of the cerebral hemisphere. Blow on the parietal area, that will cause lesion on the opposite hemisphere or medial side of the same hemisphere. So these are the position of contact group injury in different type of force. A baseball bat, a person's head is bashed by a baseball bat, struck by a baseball bat. So the frontal bone, there from the frontal lobe, there's hemorrhage, that is to the tooth injury. Again, the brain is pushed backward due to this impact of the force, and that will cause contact lesion on the occipital lobe. Now we'll discuss about what is. So with that in mind, now we know what are the different type of forces. We have learned about acceleration force, deceleration force, rotational element. We know about coup injury and counter coup injury. With that background in mind, we will start the main topic, concussion. So if head injury due to a blunt trauma leads to a partial or complete paralysis of the cerebral function, that is will result in concussion. Concussion actually means state of a temporary unconsciousness. That is, the person may be unconscious for few seconds to few minutes temporarily, and it tends to spontaneous recovery, and it is almost always accompanied with a post-traumatic retrograde amnesia. Retrograde amnesia means backward. So person will not be able to remember the events immediately preceding his unconsciousness. That is how he suffered the injury or what happened. That he will not be able to remember. The details will be a bit fuzzy. That is called post-traumatic retrograde amnesia. So concussion of the brain means it is a state of a temporary unconsciousness caused by. So from this slide we will make up the definition of the concussion. Concussion is a state of temporary unconsciousness caused by partial or complete paralysis of cerebral function due to a head injury by a blunt trauma, and it is almost always tends to spontaneous recovery and usually characterized by post-traumatic retrograde amnesia. So this is the complete definition of concussion. It is a state of temporary unconsciousness caused by partial or complete paralysis of the cerebral function due to head injury by a blunt trauma, which usually tends to recover spontaneously and usually characterized by post-traumatic retrograde amnesia. Clear? So what is the mechanism? It usually occurs to acceleration or deceleration of the head. Violent head movement, it causes a shearing or stretching of the nerve fibers, and few nerve fibers will suffer damage, mostly in the axonal area. Some actions they tear, and even if it doesn't tear, it will cause an local edema in the action in beneath the neurolemma of the action. So the action will be undergo swelling, and that will form an axonal bulb. This swelling of the action is a direct result of its stretching of the action. So that will cause a disruption of the cerebral function, which will result in the temporary unconsciousness. Now, more injuries it is seen that coronal head motion will cause severe injuries. Coronal head motion means in the coronal plane. Coronal plane is passing through the coronal suture, that is side to side. So severe injuries are seen in coronal head motion only. Sagittal head motion usually produces mild to moderate injury. Okay. So that is the mechanism behind concussion. Due to acceleration or deceleration of the head due to violent head movement, it causes shearing or stretching of the nerve fibers and axonal damage. So in a low level of acceleration or deceleration, there is only a physiological dysfunction. That is, there are some histological evidence of that. But if the force is much more, that is structural damage to the action and immediate stoppage of all activity. So in a small force, it's only physiological disruption of the cerebral function. That will be for few minutes. And the person will be a little bit confused. Amnesia even may not be there. There may not be a loss of consciousness even, but the pounding headache. That's a mild concussion. Here, the typical hallmarks of concussion are not there. There's no loss of consciousness, no confusion, no disorientation, little bit of amnesia. So it should not be a concussion. But there's a pounding headache, there's blunt trauma to the head, no structural injury, only a physiological dysfunction of cerebral function. So it is termed as mild concussion. In severe concussion, there will be structural damage to the action that will lead to cessation of the all cerebral functions. So there will be loss of consciousness, and after recovery there will be reported amnesia. Okay, this is brain. It is made up of soft tissue and it is protected by CSF. If the skull is bashed against this solid obstruction, that will lead to a local injury here, and that can lead to contraction. So cerebral contraction may be produced by direct violence to head or indirect violence, fall upon feet or buttocks. As I said multiple times, it can happen, or unexpected or fall on the ground in traffic or industrial accident. Okay. So cerebral concussion, the clinical features, what happened, the muscles during the period immediately after the event or suffering the trauma, the muscles will be flaccid, the cerebrum is not functioning proper or is not functioning for few minutes, pupils will be dilated and unreacting, pulse will be weak and respiration will be shallow. But this function is usually gradually they return to normal, and the person retains the consciousness, and then the person will be lucid and will be in touch of the surrounding. Okay, so that is how a typical concussion presents. Post-traumatic amnesia, it can range from minutes to days. That is, it will stay for minutes to days. Duration is usually proportional to the severity of the head injury. So concussion can be ruled out if unconsciousness is prolonged. That is, person is prolonged unconscious, is not retaining consciousness, then it's not a concussion. It's a more severe brain injury. Unconsciousness does not occur immediately after blow. That is, the person suffered injury today, but he suddenly drops unconscious tomorrow or after a few hours, then it is not a feature of concussion. It's a feature of a intracranial hemorrhage that we will deal with in the next class. And if coma develops later, because concussion will resolve spontaneously with only post-traumatic amnesia as the sequelae. Other than this amnesia, there will be no sequelae. What is commotio cerebri? It's a new term. It means if it's in a severe movement of the head, that will cause a shearing stress in the brain. So in the shearing stress, the minute small blood vessels supplying the brain, they get torn, and there will be smaller punted hemorrhage throughout the brain. This is called commotio cerebri. Okay, so even in many head injury cases during the autopsy, we see the small or punted hemorrhage throughout the white matter. This is commotio cerebri. That means there was a shearing stress in the brain due to blunt force trauma. So pathogenesis of concussion, there is no acceptable. There have been multiple theories floating around. The most acceptable theory is diffuse axonal injury. That is, axons are injured on a diffuse scale, on a multiple axons are injured. It's called diffuse axonal. This will lead to a functional abnormality of the nerve cells and their connections, that is in the synapses. If a axonal bulb is formed, the action is swollen, so synaptic transmission will be disrupted. So that will lead to the eventually dysfunction of the brain as a whole. So the person will lose consciousness. Occurs when head acceleration occurs over a long period, as in traffic accident or fall from a considerable height. That is, in a traffic accident, the head will take a few seconds to stop. That is, the head will be plunged forward toward the dashboard, then it will impact. So there is a few second duration. However, if a head is impacted by a hammer, this is an instantaneous injury. So here concussion is unlikely to occur. Here there will be severe brain injuries. So diffuse axonal injuries, the focal lesion usually seen in the corpus callosum or wall of the third ventricle, etc. There is microscopic evidence of numerous axonal swelling. The axon they get swollen and axonal bulbs are formed. So this is the history. So autopsy, if petechial hemorrhage is seen over the cortex at the junction of the gray and white matter or on the roof of the fourth ventricle, then this is a characteristic of diffuse axonal injury. There can be edema, there can be marling degeneration in multiple places. So in mild DAI, some actions may be damaged, but in severe diffuse axonal injury, shearing of actions in the white matter of cerebral hemisphere, corpus callosum or upper brainstem is most commonly seen. There can be focal hemorrhage in the corpus callosum or dorsolateral means in the opposite side rostral brainstem. So this is the histological feature and this is the autopsy finding. In the autopsy, in the death due to in a fatal concussion, in the fatal head injury, if we see petechial hemorrhage in the cortex or roof of the fourth ventricle or evidence of cerebral edema along with the myelin degenerated area, we can presume that diffuse axonal injury has taken place. It's not coma actually, it's unconsciousness. If the period of unconsciousness is less than 24 hours, then it's mild diffuse axonal injury. If it's more than 24 hours, then it's moderate. And if it's accompanied by brainstem dysfunction, then it's severe. In 90% cases, diffuse axonal injury is caused by vehicular accident. In 10% cases, by falls and assaults. Okay, so mild means less than 24, moderate means more than 24, severe means associated with brainstem dysfunction. This is unconsciousness. We'll discuss about the amnesia. Amnesia is usually associated with concussion, memory of the distant events. So it's a retrograde amnesia. The person will forget the events preceding the head, preceding the moment where he lost consciousness, and when it will return, the distant events will be remembered first and the recent event will be remembered last. So memory of the distant event tend to return before the recent events. The retrograde amnesia, if it's permanent, then the loss of memory can be up to seconds, up to 7 days. This amnesia is often shown in the Hindi films, in different Hindi movies. We have seen that the hero suffers a head injury and then forgets everything. Then he wakes up on one fine morning in the hospital and says, "Who am I? What's my name? Who are you? Who are you?" etc. It's it's not that. There will be in a amnesia following head injury, it will be retrograde. So the person will forget from the moment to backwards. So he is not likely to forget his name or his family. And also, it is most ridiculously in many Hindi movies, it is seen that the person is again bashed by a hammer on the head to take back the memory. It doesn't work that way. So, person recovering from the concussion, it is possible that the memory recovery may be incomplete. That is, the distant events are gradually remembered, but the recent event and more importantly, the actual cause of the head injury, actual cause of the trauma, it is often remembered indistinctly, and it may not be remembered never again. So the actual cause of the head injury, how he fell or who struck him on the head, he may not remember it. So such patients may cause false accusation because he is not sure how he got injured. So he is more prone to accuse anyone with whom he has enmity with. Maybe he is not responsible for that specific event, but he accuses that person of causing him the head injury. That is post-traumatic retrograde amnesia. Now we will discuss post-traumatic automatism. Automatism means it's an involuntary piece of behavior over which the person has no control. And post-traumatic automatism means that is after suffering a head injury or subsequent, and there will be automatism, that is the person will behave some weird way, there will be some involuntary behavior, and person will have amnesia for that automatic events that occurred during that period. That is, when retaining memory, he will not remember what automatic movements he has performed. These automatic movements mean thrashing or flailing names in a non-directed manner, or refusing to be directed. He refuses to cooperate with the doctor or nurses. He refuses to take the IV channel. He can punch the doctor or nurse. He can wildly swing in arms, or he can wander in the hallway in the hospital in a robotic fashion. So these are the automatism. He would who- and after recovery from the post-traumatic amnesia, he will never remember that there was automatism performed by him. Okay, so that is post-traumatic automatism. Now, a person who is under concussion, if he has amnesia and has some automatism exhibited, so that person can be confused with the alcoholic or drunk person because the behavior is often similar. They are more confused and disoriented. An intoxicated person suffering head injury, it will be a real challenge to determine whether whether this confusion or delirium is due to alcohol itself or due to the head injury. Between a drunk person and a concussed person. The drunk, the face is supposed to be flushed and warm. Concussed is pale and clammy. Pulse will be fast and bound in pulse in a drunk person. In a concussed, it is slow and feeble. Pupils are contracted in alcoholic coma, otherwise it is dilated, and reaction to light will be sluggish. In a contrast person, it can be contracted or unequal. Response made to light will be sluggish. Breathing will be shine breathing in a drunk person or a puffy breathing, whereas in contrast person it will be shallow, irregular, or slow. In a drunk person, it will be confused. In a contrast person, there will be retrograde amnesia. Retrograde amnesia is not seen in drunkenness. Okay. And a drunk person is be abusive, unresponsive, etc. A contrast person is most likely to be cooperative and quiet as he is injured. and due to and is in tremendous pain, headache. However, in the post-traumatic automatism, the behavior can resemble a drunk person. Now, after dealing with concussion and similar things, we will discuss about contusion. Contusion means bruise. That is what was bruise, as we learned in the chapter of mechanical injury. Bruise is caused due to extravasation of blood in subcutaneous tissue. Here, contusion of brain means extravasation of blood in brain matter. That is contusion. Okay. So in a localized deformation of skull, there will be shearing strain. This shearing strain will cause a contusion on the surface. And if head is rotated, the layer of the brain tissue will slide over each other at a different depth of the cortex. As I said, when head is rotated, brain also rotates, but the upper parts, they move more than the lower parts. So in between the brain, the different layers will move with different rotational velocity. So that will cause damage to the blood vessels. The blood vessels will be torn, and that will cause formation of contusion within the brain matter. Now, contusion can occur in the surface, as here, or in the deeper down, as here, without tearing of the tissue. That is, brain tissue is uninjured or there's no laceration even, but due to this differential motion of the brain layers, the blood vessels, they torn. May occur with the injury to the skull even. That is, if the person is riding in a car, the car was impacted by another car sideways. So persons who are sitting in the car, the head suddenly rotates towards one side. Then that will cause a contusion, but there's no direct injury to the head. This period of unconsciousness can last for several days in a severe injuries. So in a circumscribed area of brain tissue is destroyed, there will be extravasation of blood over that area only. And it is seen in a blunt force trauma, can be found in both gray and white matter. And the injury of blood and the blood vessels, they are injured by the mechanical stress caused by differential movement of the brain layers. It is most commonly found in the frontal and temporal lobes, whereas the deeper structures, the basal ganglia, midbrain or brain stem, they can be contused from impact to forehead or vortex. Most hemorrhages or contusion occur at the crest of the convolution. That is, the head, the brain has convolutions on the surface due to different sulci and gyri. So on the top of the gyri, on the crest of the convolution, this contusion is most likely to occur. The hemorrhage is first seen in the perivascular space, that is in the area surrounding the torn vessels, then gradually to enlarge. If there are multiple vessels injured, then the multiple small contusions, they can eventually coalesce together to form a large hematoma. If a blow to the top of the head, there will be prominent contour coup, that is on the vortex someone has struck by a baseball bat. So the coop injury is on the vortex, that is on the parietal lobe. Contour coop injury will be under surface of the temporal lobe, that is on the subtemporal level or on the uncus. So on the subcon also there will be contour coop subtemporal contusion. Okay. This is how a contusion looks like. It's a bare bone, the dura and arachnoid, the dura is stripped off, arachnoid is removed, brain is washed. So this hematoma attached to the brain surface, this is the contusion. Okay, here the contusion is over the temporal lobe, on the side of a temporal lobe. The last part of today's lecture is cerebral laceration. So, from a there can be cerebral concussion where there's no gross injury to the brain itself, but only physiological or functional abnormality. Then there can be mild gross injury to the brain, that is not only a contusion. Now it's a gross severe injury to the brain, that is frank laceration. That is, there's loss of continuity of the brain substance. The brain substance is torn like a they are lacerated. So the surface lacerations are accompanied by rupture of the pia mater and subarachnoid hemorrhage. Pia mater cannot be separated from brain, they are intimately attached. So surface, if the brain is lacerated, so this pia mater will be torn also, and arachnoid matter if removed, then beneath the arachnoid there will be hemorrhage, that is subarachnoid hemorrhage. So if the entire brain is grossly lacerated or disorganized, then you can't recognize which lobe is what. Then that will cause pulpification. That is, we say that the brain is pulpified. This is seen in the road traffic accident when a heavy vehicle has directly passes over the head, or in a railway accident where the train wheels have passed over the head. So the entire skull is suffered, entire skull is crushed. There are multiple comminuted fractures over all of the skull bones, and the entire brain is a soft mass that is pulpified. It is grossly lacerated. It is seen, the cerebral laceration is usually seen underneath the skull fractures. In depressed fractures, the bone fragments, the inner the in a depressed fracture, there's intrusion of the skull into the brain matter. So the inner table gets fractured, and the fractured bone fragments they tear the brain surface and will cause localized laceration. All penetrating injury causes laceration of brain. Penetrating injury means mainly bullet. As the brain is protected by a thick skull, then by knife or similar sharp weapons, penetration into brain is unlikely to occur. Penetration of brain can occur through the nose, as tibriform plate is very thin, through eyes, etc. So in these penetrative injuries or a penetrative bullet injury, there will be cerebral laceration. All penetrating injury they produce laceration. Whereas blunt trauma, they may not produce any laceration. Blunt trauma, it has caused contraction only, or it can cause contusion only, or it can cause an intracranial hemorrhage only without any cerebral laceration. A blunt trauma without skull fracture, it can lacerate. It can cause laceration in the corpus callosum or septum pellucidum in a younger individual. Why corpus callosum? Because corpus callosum is the part that does not move much. So, if there's a rotational element involved, so corpus callosum will try to be static. The entire part, the other parts of the brain will move. So in the corpus callosum, there will be some degree of laceration. This is how laceration looks like. The entire this part of the brain is lacerated. The sulci gyri they are not distinct and they are covered with a large contusion. Okay, so this is how laceration presents. Thank you very much for your patience. Today we have discussed about concussion, contusion, and laceration, the three different types of traumatic brain injury due to a blunt force trauma or penetrating trauma also. In our next and last part of the head injury series, we will discuss the four main types of intracranial hemorrhages. That is sub extradural hemorrhage, subdural hemorrhage, subarachnoid hemorrhage, and intracerebral hemorrhage. So, thank you very much for your time and patience. And if you have any doubt regarding today's topic, please feel free to reach to me, drop me a message, and I will try to help you guys. Thank you very much.